when a poor boy communicated in sign language. This CEO's mute daughter stunned everyone. On a gray morning in a bustling city, a crowd gathered in the park, their voices a chaotic symphony of anticipation. Everyone was buzzing about the strange boy who'd just arrived, dressed in worn-out clothes and carrying a backpack that seemed to swallow him whole. He stood small against the towering skyscrapers that surrounded him. But it wasn't his stature that drew eyes. It was something else, a whisper, a probability, something magical in the air. This boy was different. He could communicate without a single word. As he raised his hands, shapes danced in the air, the smooth, flowing signs of American Sign Language. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then there was her, the CEO's daughter. She had never spoken a word in her life, a silence both tragic and haunting. Today, however, her eyes sparkled like stars as she stood at the edge of the crowd, transfixed. The murmurs grew louder as onlookers caught wind of her presence. They leaned in, eager for connection, for understanding. Can she really? Someone whispered. What if she replies? The boy's gestures were sweeping, full of emotion, pain, joy, confusion, hope. Every sign he made resonated with the crowd. Curiosity clawed at their guts. Would the girl respond? What could unfold from this improbable encounter? The tension in the air was electric. People held their breath, as if waiting for the clouds to part and unveil the sun. And there she stood, eyes wide with wonder, on the cusp of breaking through her silence. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The boy's hands froze mid-air, a question lingering in the space between them. The crowd shifted, tense, holding their breath. As if the universe had decided to play a game, an invisible thread pulled tight between the boy and the girl. She seemed to lean forward, about to step into a world that had long eluded her. What would happen if she did? Would her voice finally break free? Could they forge a connection that transcended the barriers of sound and silence? A gasp echoed through the crowd, the tension palpable. Would she take that leap? The moment hung in the air like a fragile bubble, ready to burst or implode. The crowd was electric, every eye glued to the boy and the girl. The unrelenting silence felt surreal. It was as if the world around them faded, pulling focus on this singular point of possibility. The girl's heart raced in her chest. Her fingers trembled slightly as she raised her hand, an uncertain movement that sent a ripple of whispers through the crowd. Could this really be happening? Could she actually communicate? The boy watched, his expression a blend of hope and encouragement, as if he understood the enormity of the moment. It felt like they were on the edge of an awakening. As she began to form her own signs, the gestures felt strange yet exhilarating. The crowd leaned in closer, anticipation dancing on their faces. Time seemed to stretch, each second lasting an eternity. A few spectators exchanged glances, their jaws slightly agape, while others clutched at each other, unable to pull their eyes away. I wanna... The girl's hands fluttered hesitantly, her sign vocabulary limited but earnest. The boy's face lit up, sensing the effort as he encouraged her with a gentle smile and matching gestures. It was a simple phrase, yet it carried the weight of her unspoken thoughts. She was seeking connection, something everyone in that park desperately wanted. Suddenly, a shadow darted through the crowd, causing a stir. A man, sharply dressed in a tailored suit, pushed his way to the front. The CEO. He had been watching from a distance, his face twisted somewhere between pride and protectiveness. His eyes narrowed as he approached, the crowd's whispers turning into nervous murmurs. Emily, he called out, his tone both commanding and fearful. The girl froze, her hands falling into her lap, and the boy's expression shifted from joy to uncertainty. Her father's presence crashed into the moment like thunder, disrupting the fragile magic surrounding them. In that instant, the noise of the crowds faded, leaving only the drum of Emily's heartbeat in her ears. Dad, please, she wanted to protest, but the words remained trapped behind her lips, unheard. The tension thickened, wrapping itself around her throat. No, you don't understand, but he did, didn't he? The world was listening. The tempest of emotions churned within her. She wanted to shout, to scream, to tell him how trapped she had felt all these years, how she longed for a voice. But she couldn't. The silence was not just external. It was a prison built from fear. The boy looked between them, sensing the barrier that had sprung up like an unpassable wall. He gently gestured to the CEO, urging him to see what this meant for Emily. Uncertainty clouded his features, but he held his ground. The crowd shifted again, stealing furtive glances, some hopeful, others curious about the man's reaction. Let her be. The boy suddenly signed, with an intensity that made the air buzz around them. This is her moment. The weight of his words felt like a challenge, a confrontation against the world of silence. Emily's heart swelled, but would her father respond to the plea? Just then, a sudden realization hit Emily like a bolt of lightning. Was her father really ready to fully support her? Would this be the turning point for both of them, or simply another moment lost in silence? As the tension reached a breaking point, everyone held their breath, waiting for the next move. What would happen next? Would Emily find her voice, or would she crumble under the expectations of the world around her? The air thickened, heavy with anticipation as the spotlight of the moment zeroed in on Emily and her father. The crowd was a sea of faces, some hopeful, some doubtful, all connected by the tension that crackled like electricity. Emily felt the weight of their gazes, as if they were waiting for her to shatter her silence once and for all. "Dad," she began, her signs trembling as she formed the words. Each gesture felt like a lifeline thrown into uncharted waters. "You need to listen." But the CEO stood rooted, a storm brewing in his eyes. Words danced on the tip of his tongue, fragments of protest swirling in the chaos of his mind. His mouth twitched, yet no sound came out. Emily glanced to the boy beside her, his features an encouraging mix of defiance and understanding. She drew strength from his bravery, as if his very presence lent her an unspoken power. "Let her speak. Let her show you." The boy signed again, his passion reverberating through the onlookers like a chant. Silence reigned momentarily before the murmurs crept back in, threading anxiety through the crowd. Would the CEO finally yield? What if he didn't? "Emily, this isn't how it works," the CEO finally said, his voice low and strained. The words sliced through her like glass. It felt as if he was declaring war on her fledgling hopes. "You have responsibilities, a future. That why can't I have both?" She shot back, adrenaline fueling her movements. With each sign, her hands transformed into weapons, hacking away at the chains that bound her, carving her identity into something fierce and resolute. The crowd gasped, the energy shifting from tense to charged. Emily's heart thrummed in her chest, pounding louder than the staccato of her thoughts. She was rocking the boat now, and danger lurked beneath the surface. Would they recognize her fight for freedom, or would her father's grip drown her? "Emily." He reached for her, desperation etched in his expression. She jerked away from his touch, her eyes blazed with defiance. "You can't just throw away everything we've built." Something in her snapped. "You never built anything for me. You built it for your image." The words tumbled out, powerful and raw, resonating like thunder rolling over the crowd. Gasps erupted, fingers pointed. Whispers turned to murmurings of shock and disbelief. Influential voices in the audience began to debate what they were seeing. Emily, the silent daughter of one of the city's most significant figures, had become the storm of a rebellion, confronting a lifetime of expectations with her unyielding spirit. The boy's eyes sparkled with something potent: encouragement, hope, something fevered and unfiltered. Empowered by his gaze, Emily pressed on. "I want to be seen. I'm tired of being the quiet one. I am more than what you expect me to be. I want to—" "Emily, stop this!" The CEO's voice was strained, filled with a father's fear, but she ignored him. The weight of the world felt lighter now. "I want to live," she signed, the defiance radiating through her like a beacon. Suddenly, the energy shifted again. The crowd began to cheer. They had not come merely to spectate. They had come to witness a revolution unfold, and Emily was the spark igniting the flames. But just as the momentum seemed unstoppable, a sharp, piercing sound sliced through the roar of the crowd. A crack. A voice. The CEO's hand fell heavily on her shoulder. "You don't understand, Emily. You're—" But then a scream erupted from the back of the crowd, cutting through the charged atmosphere like a hawk's talon. Emily turned, her heart dropping. What could disrupt this moment? Her eyes darted toward the source of the chaos. A figure was rushing forward, a pale face twisted in wild desperation. "Your message. It's not just for him." A friend she thought had stayed behind was now amidst the tension. "It's for all of us." Emily's heart raced as uncertainty flooded her mind again. What did this mean? A message? The boy beside her took a step forward, bearing the weight of the moment alongside her. What had she really unleashed? As the crowd began to ripple with anxiety and intrigue, she realized they were looking at her, desperate for answers. And once again, the moment hung, a fragile bubble teetering on the brink of chaos, yet bursting with promise. Will she give them what they crave? Panic washed over Emily like a cold wave. The crowd was no longer simply witnessing a confrontation. They were on the edge of something larger, something that involved them all. Her friend, focused, wild and frantic, was now part of the story, and she had not planned for this. It was no longer just about her fight against her father. It was a call for collective uprising. "Emily, the world needs to hear you." The urgency in her friend's voice heightened the tension. Suddenly, every eye wasn't just on the daughter of the city's formidable CEO. They were on a symbol of change, a candle flickering against the storm. Emily felt as if she were standing on a precipice, toes hanging over the edge. She had ignited a spark that could illuminate the shadows countless others lived in. "Are you ready for this?" The boy beside her signed, a mix of concern and excitement in his eyes. She could feel the weight of his question hanging between them. The air buzzed with energy, each heartbeat drumming in sync with the collective moment. Emily glanced at her father, the smile on his face now twisted into a grimace. He was a fortress against the sea of uncertainty, and she had a choice. Back down and conform, or charge ahead and fight even harder for those waiting for her voice to break through the barrier of silence. "I am," she signed back, a newfound strength surging through her. The tremors of hesitation she harbored didn't just fade away. They transformed into firm resolve. The crowd surged, the atmosphere electric. "Speak. Show us your truth," they chanted, a tidal wave of enthusiasm building behind her. Taking a deep breath, Emily lifted her hands high, forming new words. "This isn't just about me. It's about everyone who's ever felt trapped. Everyone who's stifled under unyielding expectations." Gasps echoed through the crowd, the rebellion's heartbeat growing louder. Her father's face contorted, rage and panic warring in his expression. "Stop this madness," he shouted, his voice cracking under the pressure. But the crowd only roared louder, rallying around her newfound declaration of freedom. "People don't need to sit silently while their dreams wither," she signed, pulling from deep inside herself, sharing a truth too long hidden. "We are more than what society dictates. Let us claim our voices." The crowd erupted. Cheers and shouts of encouragement washed over her, seizing her heart with hope. But amid the rising euphoria, a flicker of doubt sparked in her chest. Could she truly change anything? Then, the friend who had rushed forward spoke again, his voice breaking through the noise. "We are ready for a new beginning. Are you, Emily?" The question hung in the air like a weighty conclusion to her pivotal moment. Was she ready to lead this movement, knowing full well what it entailed? Gaze steady, she glanced back at her father, his frustration smoldering silently. Would she abandon him, or could she somehow merge her fight with her family legacy? A thunderous roar broke her from deep thought as the crowd called her name like an anthem. There was no denying it. She had become the embodiment of change. A powerful force ignited within her, one she didn't want to resist. But before she could act, a sudden flash of light caught her attention. A camera crew, previously hidden, had begun recording the scene, and Emily's heart flipped. Her father's control was slipping away faster than she could comprehend, and something darker was brewing beneath the surface. "Emily," the boy urged her with his eyes. "This is the moment." With steely determination, she felt everything fall into place. She was ready to embrace this chaos, ready to channel every ounce of her being into something far greater than herself. The crowd was her strength, and she could feel the pulse of change in the air. But at the very edge of this exhilarating chaos, a figure appeared at the front of the crowd, someone familiar, someone who shouldn't be here. Emily's heart dropped as recognition crashed over her. Her mother, what was she doing here? And why was fear raining down on her like a summer storm? The chaotic energy shifted abruptly, leaving Emily wondering if this rebellion could survive the weight of a family secret long buried. What was her mother about to reveal? Emily's heart raced as she locked eyes with her mother, a storm of emotions swirling between them. The crowd, once a roaring sea of support, fell eerily silent. All that could be heard was the distant echo of her father's frustrated shouts, fading into the background as if swallowed by the gravity of the moment. "Mom." The words slipped out, raw and trembling. What could she say? Everything she had fought for, everything she had become in this fraught moment, teetered on the verge of a revelation she never anticipated. Her mother's expression was a mixture of concern and desperate hope. She stepped forward, weaving through the throng, her movements frantic yet purposeful. The murmur of the crowd grew louder as they turned their focus toward the woman who had now entered the fray. "Emily," she began, her voice steady but barely above a whisper. The chaotic energy crackled again, encouraging silence as everyone strained to hear. "You don't understand what you're stepping into." "What do you mean?" Emily demanded, her hands shaking with a mix of fear and defiance. "I'm stepping into freedom. This is my fight. This isn't just about you." Her mother's voice rose, filled with the weight of untold secrets. "You're calling for change, but do you know what that means for our family? For your father?" The eyes of the crowd flickered back to her father, still seething, his jaw clenched. Emily's heart twisted. Was this rebellion worth tearing apart the fragile bond with the man she had idolized? "Mom, are you saying I should back down?" Emily's voice wavered with uncertainty. "I can't. I want tea." Then, her mother took a step closer, lowering her voice, almost as if speaking a forbidden truth. "You have no idea the sacrifices I made, what I shielded you from. If you continue down this path, you might lose more than you ever dreamed." The words hung heavy in the air, a chill creeping over her. Who was her mother beneath the polished facade? What had been the price of silence? Suddenly, the rebellion didn't feel so empowering. Fear clutched at her throat as she realized that her fight against her father could unravel the very fabric of her family. "I don't care," Emily shouted, shaking her head defiantly. "What good is a legacy if it chains us down? People need hope. They need to know they can break free. Hope can come at a cost." Her mother shot back, pain etching her features. "You might not be ready for the truth about what our family has done to maintain control. There are those who would stop you if you go too far." A collective intake of breath surged through the crowd, gasps rippling like waves of tension. They watched the drama unfold, their eyes darting between the two women, sensing the peril of this revealing exchange. "Stop me?" Emily echoed, feeling the fear lodged itself deeper, clinging to her spine. "I need to know. What are you talking about?" Before her mother could respond, a sudden commotion erupted from the back of the crowd. Shouting, angry voices crescendoed, and the atmosphere shifted again, this time towards something darker. "Get her out of here. It's a trap," someone shouted, a clash of fury lacing the words as faces morphed from enthusiasm to alarm. Emily's eyes darted around. What was happening? Were they truly at risk here? The very idea of her fight being crushed by unknown forces sent a shockwave through her. "No, don't leave," she yelled, but the crowd was already buzzing with panic, uncertainty running wild. Her mother's eyes widened, a flash of fear. "Emily, we don't have much time. There are people who want to silence you. They will do anything." As the crowd surged toward the exits, Emily felt the ground beneath her shake. The unity she had created cracked, and chaos threatened to swallow her whole. "Emily, the truth is more dangerous than you know," her mother shouted over the din as desperate faces pushed against her. And with that, Emily realized her fight might not just be against her father or for the people. It could very well be a fight for her life, and she had no idea how deep this truth ran. What awaited her when the dust settled? And who would emerge unscathed from the turmoil? Emily's pulse thundered in her ears as the crowd pushed against her, panic igniting a storm of confusion. faces blurred around her, contorted with fear as they stumbled toward the nearest exit. Her mother gripped her arm, holding her firmly, imploring her to listen, but the noise swirled, drowning out rational thought. "Mom, what do you know?" Emily shouted, desperation edging a tremor in her voice. "What is happening? Who wants to silence me?" The air crackled with tension, each terrified gaze intensifying the urgency. They'd felt the shift of threat looming just beyond the edges of the chaos. Her mother's grip tightened, a throwback to her childhood when she would shield Emily from storms both inside and outside the home. "Please, we need to move," her mother urged, pulling Emily toward the fringes of the fray. "We can't be here. They will come for you. You have to trust me." "Trust you?" Emily's heart wrenched at the thought. She had trusted her, had fought so hard for the cause, but now the very foundation of her beliefs felt as if it were crumbling. "After everything you've said? I don't even know who you are." Just then, a figure burst through the crowd, dark and looming. It was David, a friend and fellow activist. His face was twisted with urgency, lined with the strain of their struggle. "Emily, there's no time. They're coming. We need to get you out of here." His words cut through the fog of confusion, but instead of relief, dread surged within her. "Who is coming?" she yelled, but he didn't answer. The crowd's anxiety seeped into her bones, urging her to break free of her mother's restraining hold. The clamor reached a fever pitch, and she noticed a man at the back, shouting orders as he surged forward. His presence felt menacing, the kind that sent ripples of dread through the atmosphere. "No one leaves. We've got to contain this." Her heart thundered painfully in her chest. Contain what? She wanted to scream, but the words stuck in her throat, replaced by raw panic. "Emily," David was losing patience. "We need to get you to safety, or they'll make sure you never speak again." Questions swirled in her mind. Safety? From whom? Was her father involved in this? The notion twisted like a knife. The crowd began to disperse, some tripping over others in their haste to escape. Emily caught glimpses of familiar faces, friends who, just moments ago, had cheered her on. Now, they were draped in fear, the hope they once held dwindling into something sinister. "Come on," David shouted and extended his hand, his eyes pleading with urgency that sent new adrenaline coursing through her veins. As she snatched his hand, her mother's voice pierced the haze, filled with a sorrow that etched itself deep into her heart. "You don't know what you're doing, Emily." In that instant, the man from the back broke through the crowd, a wild glint in his eyes, chaos boiling over behind him. "Grab her," he ordered sharply, and the air turned electric. Emily's mind raced. She propelled herself forward, David's grip firm against the growing storm. Yet, as they pushed through the throng, she felt the weight of eyes on her: judgment, fear, anger. Were they blaming her for this chaos? Did they see her as a threat or a victim? Suddenly, her mother's shout resonated in the crowd, echoing across the silence that held them. "You'll never be free until you learn the truth." The ground beneath Emily's feet seemed to shift. Truth. The very word sent chills through her. What truth? As she fought against the tide, her heart raced not just from fear, but from an insatiable hunger for understanding. What had her family sacrificed to protect her all this time? They broke free from the crowd into the open air, where the sun felt blinding after the dim chaos. But outside, a black SUV loomed, engines rumbling menacingly, waiting with intent. "What now?" Emily gasped, breathless and at once invigorated and terrified. David looked back at the chaos they had abandoned, the uncertainty crackling in the air between them. "Now we run. But we can't trust anyone." Before she could respond, a voice boomed from behind them, slicing through the tension like a knife. "You can't escape your destiny, Emily. You will learn the truth, one way or another." Emily turned, a cold shiver racing down her spine. What awaited her in the shadows? And was her fight against her father part of a greater and darker fate? The SUV's engine roared, just as the air filled with a chorus of shouts from behind them. Emily felt a surge of adrenaline, her instincts clamoring for her to move. It was a visceral response, like the fight-or-flight reflex that kicked in during a crisis. "Get in," David urged, his voice nearly drowned out by the cacophony closing in around them. They rushed toward the vehicle, and as Emily climbed inside, she stole a glance back. The man shouting orders was gaining ground, his eyes wild with determination. They were out of time. Drive. Now. David yelled at the driver, who paled under the seriousness of the moment. The SUV's tires screeched as it lurched forward, and Emily felt her heart thumping like a war drum. They were escaping, but what awaited them just beyond this fleeting moment of safety? Where are we going? Emily found her voice, pushing against the quiet anxiety that threatened to swallow her whole. Somewhere safe, David replied, his eyes glued to the rearview mirror. He clenched his jaw. They know where you are, Emily. We need to regroup and figure out what's really going on. Emily could hardly breathe. The words that tumbled from her lips barely made sense. But my mother, your mother had her reasons. But right now, we need to focus on you. David shot back, his tone urgent but fiercely protective. We'll get answers later, I promise. As they sped away from the chaos, Emily felt like the world was collapsing behind her, each familiar face growing distant. Questions heaved inside her like a restless tide. A part of her craved the truth, needed it to make sense of her mother's terrified warnings and her father's looming shadow over her life. The SUV veered sharply, turning down an unmarked road. The trees closed around them, dark and foreboding, blocking out the light. Emily's chest tightened, a mix of fear and uncertainty. David, tell me what you know, she urged, desperation creeping into her voice. What are we up against? He hesitated for just a moment, his attention darting around as though the shadows might leap out and engulf them. After you made your speech, we received intel. There are people who don't want you to represent us. They think your voice can sway others. And your father, he's in deep with them. Her breath caught. My father? The thought ignited anger and betrayal. But why? He's tied to forces that want to maintain the status quo. David said sharply, his brows furrowed. They don't want any disturbance. They don't want you to challenge them. Emily felt nausea wash over her. Was she really caught up in something bigger than herself? She had always fought against a system she thought she understood, and now it felt like she was standing at the center of a dark and tangled web. Suddenly, the SUV jolted, forcing them both to brace against the seats. A shout broke through their fears. Someone was on their tail. Faster! David yelled, urgency seeping into his words. Emily's mind raced as they sped deeper into the woods. Was escape truly possible? What could her mother have meant by learning the truth? And why did it feel as if everything she believed was about to shatter? Ahead, a clearing opened, revealing a small cabin nestled among thick trees. David took a hard turn, skidding to a stop as their pursuers' headlights flashed behind them, illuminating the darkness for just a moment. Get out, David ordered, urgency snapping through the air like a whip. We have to move. They scrambled out of the SUV, adrenaline overpowering fear, but just as they reached the cabin door, a voice echoed through the trees, cold and mocking. You want to hide from your destiny, Emily. Not now, not ever. Emily turned, her heart racing even faster. The shadows were closing in. Who was that? And did the truth she sought even matter anymore if they were hunted? What lay inside that cabin? Was it safety or another trap? She could sense the tension around her, heavy and electric, as they made the decision to walk through the threshold and into the unknown. The cabin door swung open, revealing darkness that enveloped them like a heavy fog. Emily hesitated for a split second, glancing at David, whose face was painted with worry and urgency. We don't have time, he urged, tugging at her arm. They rushed inside, the scent of damp wood and musty air filling their lungs. David switched on a small flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness, revealing rough-hewn walls and debris scattered on the floor. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, but something deeper, an inkling of fear about what lay ahead, gripped her. Where are they? David whispered, his voice barely above a breath. He peered through a grimy window. Outside, the night was alive with the sounds of chaos. Emily could hear the distant shouts of men, the almost palpable energy of someone hunting for them. We need to barricade the door. David's eyes darted from the window to the door, and Emily nodded, a pang of urgency driving her. They shoved a rickety table against the entrance, the wood creaking under the strain. What do we do now? She asked, her voice trembling, eyes wide. The urgency of the moment pressed on her relentlessly. David hesitated, wiping sweat from his brow. We wait, listen. The atmosphere was suffocating, a stark contrast to the crush of adrenaline seconds before. They settled into silence, the kind that felt heavy with impending doom. Emily's heart pounded against her ribs as she listened to the sounds outside. Then, a distant crack of branches snapping underfoot made her breath hitch. Footsteps grew louder, approaching fast. Panic clawed at her, threatening to break loose. Should David put a finger to his lips, urging her to stay quiet? Just then, a shadow passed by the window, then another, and another. Emily peeked through a slit in the makeshift barricade. 3 men moved agilely, flashlights dancing wildly like lightning bugs in the night. Every muscle in her body tensed. "They know we're here," she whispered, fear dancing in her voice. David's face hardened, determination flickering against the anxiety. "We need to find a way out, quickly." He rummaged through the cabin, tossed aside old furniture, searched for anything that could help. Emily, still clutching her side, searched her memories for escape routes, desperate for anything that could give them an edge. "Wait," she gasped as she noticed a small trap door in the corner, partially obscured by years of neglect. "David, over here." He rushed over, his eyes brightening for a moment. "Good find." They pried it open, revealing a steep, dark staircase that descended into darkness. "Should we?" Emily asked, the fear in her voice mingled with the small glimmer of hope. "Yes, we have to. It's our best shot," David replied firmly, yet anxiety dripped from each word. They stumbled down the stairs, the musty air thick around them. The darkness swallowed them whole, and Emily gripped David's arm for reassurance, her mind racing. What if they were caught? What if this was just another trap, leading them deeper into unknown danger? As they reached the bottom, the darkness was punctuated by a peculiar noise, a low, rhythmic pounding. Was it a heartbeat? Or something else entirely? "Listen," David urged, holding her back. The pounding quickened, echoing through the narrow space. Emily felt a chill race down her spine. "What is that?" Just then, a beam of light sliced through the dark, illuminating strange symbols carved into the walls. David's flashlight flickered, revealing hidden messages, warnings etched in a language Emily didn't recognize. "Emily, we need to get out." Panic edged into his voice, thick and unwavering. They turned back, hearts racing, but at that moment, the trap door above slammed shut, sealing them in. The pounding grew louder, a rhythm that resonated deep within her chest. Someone or something was pursuing them even here. "David!" Emily shouted, the urgency piercing her voice as they scrambled for answers. "Stay close," he barked, the panic now spreading like wildfire. They pushed deeper into the darkness, unsure of what lay ahead. Emily wondered, in that profound silence between heartbeats, if facing the truth outside was any better than the unknown lurking within. What awaited them in this suffocating void was a mystery she feared to unravel. The pounding stopped, and in the sudden silence, a voice echoed from the shadows, chilling her to the bone. "You can't escape your fate, Emily. Not here, not ever." As dread washed over her, the true nature of their entrapment began to sink in. What awaited her in the depths of the abyss? Was there truly no escape, or answers hidden below? The air was thick with tension as they stood immobilized in the suffocating darkness, breathing in the stale air laced with an inexplicable sense of doom. Emily's heart raced. The voice that echoed through the shadows filled her head with chaos, a dread unlike anything she had ever felt before. Who are you?" David's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. The darkness felt alive, swirling with unseen eyes watching them. For a moment, all was still, the silence deafening. Then, slowly, the shadows began to shift. A figure emerged, stepping lightly from the depths, almost gliding toward them. It was impossible to see his face clearly. The dim light barely illuminated his long, dark coat that seemed to meld with the surrounding shadows. "Your fate is intertwined with the secrets of this place," he said, his voice like ice, each word sending a shiver down Emily's spine. "You cannot turn back. Not anymore." Emily rubbed her arms, trying to shake the cold creeping into her bones. She exchanged a quick glance with David. "What does he mean? What secrets?" Before she could utter another word, the figure gestured toward the symbols carved into the walls. As if sensing their confusion, he stepped closer, revealing a frail, anguished face, sunken eyes, and a hollow expression that hinted at years of suffering. They sealed their souls within these walls. He pointed to the symbols, each line twisting in ways that made Emily's head spin. The ones that came before you, those who sought refuge here. They became part of the darkness. You have come searching for escape, but what you find may be worse than the hunters outside. Why are you telling us this? David challenged, his voice steadier than before, bolstered by anger and defiance. Because the truth must be heard, even if it leads to despair. Emily felt her heart plummet. They needed to escape and fast, but with every passing second in this grim chamber, it felt as if the walls themselves were closing in. They were not alone. Shadows threaded between the crevices in the wood, whispering softly, tauntingly. "Tell me how to escape," Emily shouted, her voice reverberating in the tight space. "Is there a way out?" The figure hesitated. "Each door leads to another path, but the price is steep. To leave, you must confront what you fear most. It will test your souls. Will you trade your values for freedom?" His words hung heavily in the air. Emily's breath was ragged as her mind raced. What was she willing to sacrifice? A bitter thought gnawed at her. Was it survival, or the truths they had buried deep within themselves? "Enough. We don't have time for riddles," David barked, stepping closer, anger burning in his eyes. "We are not interested in your games." The figure smiled sadly, a ghostly grin that barely touched his lips. "Then, if you refuse the truth, it will find you. You may think your fate can be rewritten, but the darkness is relentless." Emily could feel panic rising, choking her resolve. "What do we do, David? We can't stay here." Suddenly, a rumble echoed from above, shaking the ground beneath them. The trap door shuddered violently, and they exchanged terrified looks. The hunters were getting closer. "Do you hear that? They are coming. We can't stay," Emily cried, her pulse racing. The mysterious figure took a step back, fading into the shadows. "You must decide now. Be brave enough to face what you fear, or be consumed by the very darkness seeking you." With that, he melted into the blackness, leaving them alone, chaos roaring in the distance, uncertainty clawing at their sanity. "Emily, we have to go," David urged, seizing her hand. "If there's a way out, we need to find it." As they sprinted through the dim corridor, Emily could hear whispers growing louder, claws of the past reaching for them. But the abyss was closing in. What awaited them beyond the threshold? What would they have to face to escape? "David, I don't think we're ready." Her fear bubbled over, uncertainty spilling into each word. Just then, a chilling laughter rang out from the shadows, filling the narrow corridor as if the darkness itself were mocking them. "Ready or not, the reckoning has come," a familiar voice whispered, sending them tumbling deeper into dread. What awaited them when they inevitably confronted the entity that had haunted their thoughts? Were they truly prepared to face the monsters, both inside and out? The cabin trembled as if responding to a storm brewing within. Emily was engulfed by a wave of panic. The shadows swirled around her, eager to pull her into their depths. David's grip remained firm on her hand, a beacon in the rising tide of uncertainty. Suddenly, a crash sounded above, the trap door splintering under the weight of the pursuers now storming their sanctuary. "We have to move," David shouted, urgency thrumming through his voice. They squeezed through a narrow hallway, the air thick with tension, each heartbeat echoing louder than the other. "Where do we go?" Emily gasped. They had lost track of the path in the dark, every turn feeling like a trap. "The bottom." David pointed to a door at the end of the corridor. "If there's any hope, it's there." As they approached, the thud of footfalls above grew louder. Shadows flitted across the walls, casting ominous shapes that reminded Emily of the darkness they faced. "Hurry," she shouted, panic clawing at her throat. They burst through the door and tumbled down a rickety staircase into a dimly lit cellar. The air was stale, thick with dust, but there was a flicker of desperation, a flicker of hope. As they landed, the cellar filled with a strange luminescence. Piles of broken equipment, old books, and signs of lively activities long abandoned scattered against the walls. "What is this place?" Emily murmured, absorbing the surroundings. "It's like a hollow grave of secrets," David replied, scanning the area. His expression turned serious. "It's a bunker. They must have hidden something here, something that can help us." The pounding grew more insistent, the door above splintering further with every moment. Emily felt a surge of dread wash over her. What truth was hidden in this desperate refuge? Over here, David called out, pointing to a wall lined with files and documents. They rushed to investigate, pulling out stacks of papers filled with scrawled plans, potential movements of the very forces they were up against. As she flipped through, Emily's heart raced. Each document told stories of rebellion, the sacrifices made, the risks taken, and the hope that was once alive here. Emily, David said, excitement threading through his voice as he held up a particular file. This is a plan to expose the truth about those in power, your father's involvement, their agenda. Emily's eyes widened, pieces clicking into place. This was bigger than her. It was a network, a fight against oppression. But that meant risking not just her life, but also their safety now that they were in the crosshairs of someone dangerous. We can't show the world, not yet. She stammered, weighing the implications of their discovery. Emily, David urged, pulling her attention back to him. We have to expose them. This is the key to your voice. You can rally everyone around this. They deserve to know. The echoes of their footsteps grew louder as even more urgency surged through the air. We can't lose this chance. He reached for her, determination radiating from him. Just then, the door above burst open, a dark silhouette emerging from the chaos. Emily froze. Go, David yelled, pushing her towards a far corner, where a small window beckoned with a sliver of moonlight. He scrambled up the crates, desperately trying to make larger-than-life decisions with seconds to spare. David, she cried, paralyzed by fear. What will happen if they catch us? We fight, he shouted back, his voice a mixture of confidence and sheer instinct. We adapt like all those before us. Trust me. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream fractured the tension. Emily's mother's face collided into her memory, her warning cutting deeper than a jagged knife. But there were no time for fears. She focused on David, his fearless aura beckoning her to join him. Taking a deep breath, she joined him, climbing to reach the window. Just as their bodies collided against the opening, a rush of shadows burst through the doorway. Heart racing, she looked back. It was an army of darkness converging upon them. The very force her mother had warned about. Now, push, David urged. With adrenaline surging, they squeezed through the narrow opening, tumbling out into the cool night air. They found themselves on the other side and bolted through the thick forest, whispers of uncertainty trailing behind them like a ghost. Where to? She gasped between breaths, her mind racing. Follow the river, he directed. It'll lead us to a safe place. The last of the whispers faded away, each step grounding her back into reality. The truth they had unearthed could be their salvation. And now, with the dark weight of her family's legacy crushing down, Emily realized her voice didn't just belong to herself anymore. It was for everyone longing to break free. They ran deeper into the woods, their silhouettes swallowed by the shadows. But the fire ignited within her was undeniable. They would expose the lies, confront the darkness, reclaim their voices together. As they finally reached the riverbank, Emily paused, breathless but resolute. She turned to David, the gravity of everything they had faced crashing onto her. If we make it through this, I want to stop fighting. For us all. His eyes sparkled with understanding and responsibility, tempered by the weight of their actions. We want to just survive, Emily. We'll thrive. With a nod, they plunged into the icy waters, the current swirling around them like an untamed storm. And beneath the shimmering starlight, the journey had only just begun. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss any of the exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this shocking ending. And remember, this is the moment to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the word.